American meat companies are facing a big problem. They lost $5 billion because other countries stopped buying their meat. This was bad news for American farmers. Countries in Asia stopped accepting big shipments of American beef and pork. The ships carrying the meat had to turn around and go back to America. This huge loss of money was a problem for many farms and meat companies in the U.S. But at the same time, something very different was happening in Canada. Canadian meat companies made a huge new deal to sell their meat. The deal was for almost the same amount of money that the U.S. had just lost. Because of this, you can now see Canadian brands everywhere. The Canadian maple leaf symbol is on menus in big cities like Tokyo and Seoul. Canada quickly became the new top meat seller for many countries. Back in America, families felt the change right away. The price of ground beef went up fast. It cost almost $2 more for just one package. Bacon also got much more expensive, costing almost $10 for a pound. Grocery stores told shoppers that prices could go even higher, maybe another 15% before the end of summer. This meant that everyday food was getting very expensive for families. This makes people ask some big questions. Why did a government plan go so wrong? The plan, which included special taxes on things from other countries, was supposed to help. But it seems it made things worse for the U.S. meat industry. Now, Canada is selling lots of meat to countries in Asia, not America. What does this mean for food prices at your local store? How will this change what you buy for your next family dinner or barbecue? 2. A new winner. Canada is now a very important seller of meat to the world. This change happened very fast. A big moment was in March 2023. Japan stopped a 20-year ban on processed beef from Canada. This opened up a very big market for Canadian meat, worth over 500 million Canadian dollars. It was a great new chance for Canadian meat sellers. Just 2 years later, in May 2025, government numbers showed a big change. Canada was selling 13% more meat to Japan. This showed that Canada was now selling a lot of meat to Asia. In many Asian cities, restaurants and food shops quickly changed where they bought their meat. They stopped buying American beef. Instead, their menus now had Canadian meat, often with the famous maple leaf symbol. Another big thing helped Canada. In April, China put a very high tax on U.S. beef. The tax was 125%, which made U.S. beef very expensive to buy. Because of this, big barbecue restaurants in China had to find a new place to buy meat. They stopped buying beef from the United States. They quickly started buying cheaper meat from Canada instead. It was easy to see what was happening. Ships that took U.S. meat to Asia often came back half empty. there were fewer buyers for American meat. At the same time, freezers all across Asia started filling up with meat from Canada, in boxes with red and white Canadian labels. Meat sellers in Canada started to think that selling to the U.S. was a risk. To avoid future problems, they made new deals directly with countries like Korea and the Philippines. This helped Canada become the new leader in the Asian meat market. 3. The farms feel it. The problems with meat are getting bigger. Now they are affecting American farms that grow food for animals, like corn and soybeans. Selling meat to other countries was very important for these farmers. It helped them make more money from the food they grew for the animals. In 2024, selling pork to other countries used a lot of American soybeans. It was worth over $1 billion to the farmers. Selling meat also added about 59 cents of extra money for every bushel of corn sold last year. This extra money was a big help for farmers, especially during hard times. But now that extra money is going away. Because the U.S. is selling less meat to other countries, people will buy a lot less corn and soybeans. Asian buyers are worried about problems with U.S. meat, so they are buying from Canada instead. This means less business for American meat companies and less need for American corn and soybeans. Experts say if China stops buying half of its meat from the U.S., farmers could sell 50 million fewer bushels of soybeans. This could mean farmers lose all the extra money they made from soybeans in 2024. Corn farmers would also have problems. Losing 59 cents for every bushel could take away nearly $3 billion from the 2025 corn harvest. This money problem is a big warning for farmers in places like Iowa. Many of these farms already have a hard time borrowing money. The cost of seeds and equipment is also going up. This new problem makes their situation even more difficult. At the same time, Canadian farmers are getting new deals to ship their meat directly to Asia. These were the kinds of deals U.S. farmers used to have. If this change stays for a long time, American farms might have too much corn and soybeans this fall. They might have to sell it for very low prices. Farmers are calling this a second punch. The first problem was with selling meat. This second problem is with selling the food for the animals. It's a double problem for American farms, all because meat shipments were turned away in other countries. 4. A big problem at home. A big problem was happening at home with American meat. The U.S. almost stopped selling meat to China. This happened because China did not give new permissions for many American meat factories to sell there. One month, the U.S. sent over 2,000 tons of beef to China. But after the permissions were not renewed, that number dropped to only 54 tons a week. This was a huge drop of 97%. This caused big problems for meat factories in the Midwest. They had too much meat and nobody to sell it to in other countries. Their freezers were completely full. Because of this, factory managers had to make hard choices. They canceled work shifts for many employees to stop losing more money. Shoppers in America felt the change quickly. By February 2025, the average price of ground beef was 43% higher than in early 2020. For example, a family that spent about $8 for taco night 5 years ago now paid almost $12 for the same amount of meat. This big price jump surprised many shoppers. The high price of beef and pork was hardest for families with low incomes. These families depended on cheaper beef and pork to feed their children. Now, these meats were very expensive. School lunch programs also had problems. They could not afford the high prices. Many schools started changing their menus. They served chicken instead of beef. This was happening at a time when the number of cows in the U.S. was already the lowest in 74 years, which made prices for American families go up even more. 5. The price goes up. Meat is now very expensive for American families. Many people see this problem at the grocery store. A large meat company, Tyson Foods, talked about this. In May 2025, Tyson said beef prices went up by 8.2% in just 3 months. This made many shoppers buy chicken instead. Tyson's leaders said the cost of buying cows was very high. This made it hard for them to make money. The CEO of Tyson Foods said the market was the toughest we've ever seen. This shows how difficult things are. Why are prices so high? One big reason is that there are fewer cows in the United States. The number of cows is the smallest it has been since 1951. That was over 70 years ago. Because there are not enough cows, companies have to fight to buy the few that are available. This makes prices go up. This bidding war for cows makes beef more expensive for everyone. The price of wholesale beef was 10.1% higher in May than last year. Fast food restaurants are now using smaller pieces of meat in their burgers. Grocery stores are changing price tags almost every week. Schools are also having problems. They are changing their lunch menus. Many schools now serve chicken tacos instead of beef tacos because they cannot afford the high price of beef. As the U.S. has less meat and prices go up, other countries are selling more. People in Tokyo and Seoul are now eating Canada Prime steaks. This meat used to come from the U.S. Every pound of meat Canada sells to other countries is 1 less pound for U.S. stores. If problems with dry weather and taxes continue, a beef roast for a holiday dinner might become something only rich people can buy. 6. Canada's Smart Plan. Canada saw the problems the U.S. meat industry was having. While the U.S. was dealing with its trade problems, Canada acted fast. The Canadian government made a smart plan to help its own meat businesses. They spent a lot of money to make sure their meat could get to buyers all over the world, especially in Asia. On March 7, 2025, the Canadian government announced it would spend 6.5 billion Canadian dollars to help. $1 billion of that money was for special projects for the meat industry. They used the money to build new cold storage buildings, which are like giant freezers that keep meat fresh. The money was also used to build new refrigerated train lines and special freezer train cars. These new freezers and train lines are very important. Before, a lot of Canada's meat had to travel through the U.S. to get to other countries. But now, Canada has a direct way. The new refrigerated trains can take meat straight from Canadian factories to the ports, and then across the ocean to Asia. This means Canadian meat doesn't need to go through the U.S. at all. This gives buyers in places like Japan an easy way to get Canadian meat delivered right to them. This smart plan helped Canada quickly take over the important Asian markets that the U.S. had lost. Canadian meat, with its Maple Leaf brand, started to fill the stores and restaurants in Asia. The longer the U.S. had problems, the stronger Canada's business became. Canada was planning for the future, while the United States was dealing with problems from the past. The difference was clear. Canada was building new roads for its business, while America's roads were blocked. 7. Empty factories in America. The big problems with selling meat to other countries started to hurt American towns. The problems were not just about higher food prices. They also caused some factories to close. When a factory closes, many people lose their jobs. This makes life very hard for families and towns. A clear example happened in Emporia, Kansas. A large company called Tyson Foods had a big beef factory there. On December 2, 2024, Tyson announced that it would close the factory. This meant that more than 800 people lost their jobs. It was a very hard day for the workers and the town. This factory closing was a sign of a bigger problem. In the past, many meat factories in the U.S. worked all day and night to prepare meat. But now that fewer countries are buying U.S. meat, these factories have less work to do. Some factories have cut back to only one work shift a day. Leaders in the meat industry are very worried. They are afraid that if things don't get better soon, more factories could close. For example, if China continues to stop U.S. meat from being sold there, at least 4 more meat factories in the Midwest could close before Thanksgiving. This is very scary for the people who work in these factories. This situation in America is very different from what is happening in Canada. The Canadian government is helping its meat industry. It is spending billions of dollars to build new, large freezers and refrigerated train lines. These new systems help Canadian companies send their meat directly to Asia. This smart plan helps Canada sell more meat and keeps its factories busy. Meanwhile, in America, companies are trying to cut costs and are closing factories. American companies are shutting down plants and hoping the problems will just go away. The difference is clear. Canada is building up its business, while parts of America's business are shutting down. 8. What happens next? This story shows how a government plan that was supposed to help America actually hurt its own farmers and people. The U.S. government made new trade rules, but they didn't work. American farmers lost a lot of business from other countries. Because of this, people in the U.S. had to pay a lot more for everyday foods like ground beef and bacon. At the same time, Canada saw a great chance and acted quickly and smartly. Canada started selling its meat to big markets in Asia, like Japan and China. Japan ended a 20-year ban on Canadian beef. Then, China put a huge tax on U.S. beef, which made many Asian businesses choose cheaper Canadian meat. The Canadian government also spent billions of dollars to help its meat industry by building new freezers and train lines. This smart plan helped Canada take over the Asian meat market that the U.S. had lost. Now, the United States has a big problem. It could lose its top spot as a world leader in the meat business for a long time. In America, meat factories have already closed, like a big Tyson Foods factory in Kansas. Hundreds of people lost their jobs. People are worried that more factories will close. Also, the number of cows in the U.S. is the lowest it has been in over 70 years. This makes meat even more expensive for American families. There might be a way to fix these problems. Experts say a new trade agreement could help. A new agreement could make it easier and faster to move meat between countries. It could help American farmers sell their products again, and maybe help lower meat prices for everyone. The big question now is, what will happen in the future? Will the United States fight to get its business back? Or will Canada keep its new top spot in the meat business? The future of your dinner and how much it costs might depend on the answers to these questions. What do you think America's meat industry should do next?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.